All right, let's start off here on number 2. So for this one, we're going to just take a square root of each side since we already have the squared isolated. And since we created the square root, we have to put a plus or minus in front, and then the square root of 36 is just 6. All right, next up, number 4, we do need to isolate the squared first, so I'm going to subtract 8 from each side, so we get v squared equals 64. And then we'll take the square root of each side, and we get v equals, and once again, since I created the square root, I need to put plus or minus 8. Number 6, we need to actually divide the 49 first. We have to isolate that by dividing, so I get x squared equals 4 over 49. So that is a fraction, but what I can do next is just square root each side. And when you square root a fraction, you can just square root the top and the bottom separately. So that's going to be 2 over 7. However, since I created that square root, I have to put a plus or minus in front. All right, next up here, number 8, this parentheses is squared, but it is isolated, so I can just do a square root on each side to start off here. Now, the square root gets rid of the square root on that side, and then on this side, I'm going to put plus or minus 3, since that's the square root of 9, but I created the square root. So now I need to add this 3 over to this side, so I get x equals, and then I'm going to put this 3 first, and then I'm going to put plus or minus 3. So I always like to put that in back. And the reason that is now I need to kind of do this twice. I need to do it as 3 plus 3, and then I need to do it again as 3 minus 3. So I got x equals 6 and x equals 0 as my two answers. All right, next up here, number 10. So I'm going to start off here by taking a square root of each side. So I get x plus 2 equals plus or minus the square, or not, the square root of 81, which is 9. And now I'm going to subtract the 2 over, so I get x equals negative 2 plus or minus 9. Once again here, I need to split this up and do it twice as negative 2 plus 9 and negative 2 minus 9. And so I get 7 and I get negative 11. All right, next up we want to solve these ones by factoring. So I need to get one side to 0 first, so I'm going to subtract this 30 over. Now it doesn't have a like term, so I'm just going to list it out like this. X squared plus x minus 30 equals 0. And now I'm going to do, I don't see a GCF, so I'm going to do my x here. So I got negative 30 and positive 1, so it's going to be 6 and negative 5. I don't need the grouping here since we don't have a number in front, so I can just do x plus 6 times x minus 5 equals 0. And then I need to split this up and solve each of these individually. So x plus 6 equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. And then I'm going to subtract 6 on both sides, so x equals negative 6. Add 5 on both sides, and x equals positive 5. Next up, number 14. So this one I need to add 2 to each side of the equation. So I get 6m squared plus 7m plus 2 equals 0. And now I'm going to do a x. I don't see a GCF, so I'm going to do an x box here. So I got 12 and 7 for my a times c and my b. So it's going to be 4 and 3 there. And then I can rewrite this. I do need to use the grouping technique here. So I'm going to split this up according to this. So I have 4m and I have 3m. And so then I'm going to group these together and group those together. So I can take out a 2m on this group, leaving me 3m plus 2. The second group doesn't look like I can take anything out, so I'm going to take out a 1, which leaves me with 3m plus 2 as well, equals 0. And so then I have 2m plus 1 times 3m plus 2 equals 0. And then I'll split that up and set these equal to 0 individually and solve them. So this one I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides, so 2m equals negative 1. And I'll divide by 2, so m equals negative 1/2. This one I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides, so 3m equals negative 2. Divide by 3, and m equals negative 2 over 3. So those are my two answers there. All right, next up here, we do have one side to 0, and so I can start factoring. I do see a GCF here of 3. So I get 3n squared minus 2n minus 8. And so then I can do my x here. So it's going to be a times c up top is negative 24. And on bottom we have b, which is negative 2. All right, so then it looks like the two numbers that will work there are negative 6 and positive 4. So I do need to use the grouping here since I have that 3n squared out front. I'm going to split this up as negative 6n and then plus 4n. And then I got my minus 8. All right, and now I'll do my grouping here. And so I'm going to do 3n times n minus 2. And then over here I can take out a plus 4, which leaves me with n minus 2. That's equal to 0. So 3n plus 4 times n minus 2 is equal to 0. And now I need to split those up and set them equal to 0 individually. So I'll do that Oh, technically I have the 3 out there still from the beginning, but I don't need to set that equal to 0 since there's no variable. So I'm just going to say 3n plus 4 equals 0, and then also n minus 2 equals 0. So I'll subtract the 4, so 3n equals negative 4, divide by 3, and n equals negative 4 over 3 for that one. And then on this one I just add the 2, and so n equals 2. All right, next up here, I'm going to find the max or the min value, and so whenever it says that, it's always talking about the vertex. And so in standard form here, to find the vertex, I need to do x equals negative b over 2a. That's the formula. So I'll do negative 6 over 2 times negative 1, as this is my a, b, and c. So I got negative 6 over negative 2, which is positive 3. And now to find the y value, I'm going to plug that back in to all my x's. And so then I get I have to do PEMDAS here, so I'm going to leave that negative there while I square that, which is 9. But then I multiply it by a negative, and it turns into negative 9, and then plus 18, and then plus 5. And then negative 9 plus 18 is 9, plus 5 would be 14. So that's my answer for part B, the y value of the vertex, which is 14. Oh, I didn't answer part A yet, but I actually know that this is a max because A is negative. That means it's an upside down parabola, and its vertex is the highest point. So then for part C, the domain and range. The domain is always all real numbers, which you can use that symbol or write it out. And then the range, I'm going to say y. It's related to the vertex, so it's something with y and 14. I notice here on the parabola that all the y values are less than or equal to 14, so I'm going to go with that way. All right, next up here, number 20. So for this one, we're going to set this first up in vertex form. So I'm going to say y equals, I don't know what a is, but I'm going to switch the x value of the vertex and keep the y value of the vertex the same. And then I'm going to plug in the other point here, x comma y. So I'm going to say negative 5 equals, I still don't know a, but I'm going to plug in a 3 for x. It's not a negative 3, it's positive 3, minus 5 squared minus 1. So I'm going to do some PEMDAS here, so this will be negative 2 squared. And then this will turn into 4a minus 1, because negative 2 squared is 4. I'm going to add this 1 over, so I get 4a equals negative 4. I'm going to divide by 4, and a equals negative 1. So now I need to really rewrite this. I'm going to move this over a little bit, actually. So now I need to rewrite this first step, but now with my a plugged in. So it's going to be negative 1 times x minus 5 squared minus 1. Now I need to multiply x minus 5 by itself, since that's what that squared means, and in order to expand this. And so then I'm going to keep this negative 1 here, but I'm going to replace the parentheses with the contents of my box. I'm going to combine those two to give me negative 10x. And I still need that minus 1 out back. And now I'll distribute the negative 1. So that'll be negative x squared plus 10x minus 26. That's minus 25 here. And then minus 1. And so lastly, I'll just combine like terms, which are just those numbers out back. So that'll be minus 26.